So good evening, everyone. Thank you. Well, I just want to reiterate Natasha's expression of appreciation for being invited here this evening. I've come less far, I've just come over from Moseley, but nonetheless I'm very pleased to be here to contribute to this, this kind of atmosphere, this culture of communication and exploration, and also just to really celebrate the contributions we've already had this evening, you know, beautiful music and really interesting and thought-provoking ideas. So just, I'm having a really good time, and I hope you are too. So what? So this theme of love, Buddhism's got a lot to say about love, but let's just back up before that. So as you've just heard, I've been practicing Buddhism for 24 years now, and so it's a big part of my life, you could say. I'm from a, what would you call it? I'm from a progressive Buddhist community. So it's a worldwide community which was founded just over 50 years ago in the UK, but has subsequently spread all across the world. And the guiding principles of this particular tradition is trying to work out, well, what is the Buddha? What is at the heart of what the Buddha is trying to say, and how can we really apply it to our lives today? So those are the two questions we're trying, the community that I'm part of is trying to answer. And my job is, I work over at the Birmingham Buddhist Centre, and I would describe myself as one of the main teachers there, or one of the senior teaching team, or whatever you want to call it, something like that. So that's just a little bit about me. So before we jump into it, I've got some questions for you. So obviously, there's quite a few of us here, so I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to really, really invite you to go for one-word answers, so we can just hear from a few different people. So that's quite an hard thing to do, but I'm sure between you, you're intelligent, engaged human beings. So the first question is, what is love? Yeah. So we're talking about it. We've heard all about monogamy, sexual love, but what is love? Just more broadly than that. One-word answers, please, so I can write it up big enough so everyone can read. Belonging. Great. So, sorry, just give me a second. Belonging. Yeah? Unselfish. Hopefully you can go back and read this. Sorry people on Zoom, you can't see this, but if I had it in the way, then you can, the screen will get blocked. Yes? Care. Great. So we've got belonging, we've got unselfish, care. Yep.
Understanding.
Hopefully you can read this, and it's slightly funny. I'm just going to write understand because we've run out of space. Yeah?
God.
Great. God is great. So 2 more words and then we're out of space on the flip chart. Come on. Acceptance. And whose word is distinctly different from the words we've already had? Yeah, come on, Sam.
Unity.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's just keep this here for a second. So we've got belonging, unselfish, care, understanding, God, acceptance, unity. What a lovely accumulation of qualities, of values. I suppose it's striking, isn't it? Because what we've not heard is love is... It's a striking set of words, isn't it? I'm curious to hear what happens next. Okay, so that's what is love. So the next question is why? Why do we love? Got a whole other flip chart over here. One-word answers. Why? Yep, go on.
It's our essence.
It's our essence. Yeah.
Sorry, that's 3 words. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm just going to everybody. But you've got good memories, right? So I'm going to write essence, and you can remember that there's "it's our" in front of that. Yep. Friend at the back. Choice. Why do we love? Because it's a choice. As in, we've got a choice to love, or it's.
Yes, as well as who we love.
So we've got a choice to love and a choice about who we love. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Inevitable.
Love is inevitable. Wow, there you go. What does that mean?
It means sometimes it will happen even if you don't try.
Okay. So that's So why? So I'm realising I'm going to reframe the question. So that's like why we love as individuals, or but I suppose it's in a way it touches back to this thing about this question about monogamy. Like, is it an evolutionary force within human beings that we experience monogamy? So it's more like that's the sort of what I mean by why do we love? Like, why is it why is it built into the experience of being a human being to love? Maybe you still stand by inevitable. Yeah?
Like to give someone a purpose.
So love gives us purpose. Perfect. Come on, somebody hasn't spoken yet.
It's a need.
It's a need. So why do we need it? Why do we need it?
Well, we need it because it's easier to get
One
together.
person.
than
Yeah, okay.
alone.
Yeah, so for the benefit of people on Zoom, so our friends just said, it's we need it because to get a sense of, we get it from one person, something like that. Yeah, right. My co-host again, or my co-presenter?
Community.
Yeah, so we need community. And we've got space for two more words. Yep.
Survival.
Survival. Yeah. It's always challenging when you start writing things in flip charts and you have to actually be able to spell rather than just autocorrect sorting it out for you. Come on.
Dopamine.
Dopamine. Yeah, good. Yeah. So that's pleasure, right? Yeah, that's good to be honest, isn't it? Love is a drug, baby. Don't we all know it? That's what music and cinema and all of those things tell us. So over here we've got why. So we've got belonging, unselfish, caring, understanding, God, acceptance, unity. And over here we've got essence, choice, inevitable purposefulness, need, community, survival and pleasure. So what's I do this exercise with people quite often, and what's striking is there's maybe this is true for you, maybe this isn't. Often when people answer this question, there's quite a strong assumption that the word love means sort of sexual, romantic, exclusive love. But and you're the one who told us all to turn off their phones. So would you say, so when you look at these answers, do you think we're broadening our sense of what love is somehow? It's not exclusive to sexual romantic relationships. Is that what's coming across as you look at this board? Because some of them it's like, well, yeah, God would be a really clear example. That's love of God is a non-sexual romantic thing. But there's plenty others here as well, like community. That could, well, we've heard about polyamory, so that could be clutching into it, but it's suggesting something more than that, isn't it? Would you agree?
Yeah.
So we're seeking to define love more broadly. So as you know, I'm a practicing Buddhist. I come from the Buddhist tradition. So what would the Buddha say about love? So in a way, I'm interested in drawing all of you out, so I'm not going to talk for so long. But I suppose what the Buddha would say, well, what is love and why do we love? So his way of talking about what love is he would describe love, at least using contemporary psychological language, as an unlimited positive regard for the well-being of another person. That would be the language of the Buddha uses to describe love. So in his most famous teaching on love, he's presenting a vast vision of the possibility of human relationship. So he says, at the heart of it, or the key image or metaphor, is he says, just as a mother loves their child, their only child, so may I have the same unbounded heart for all that moves. Yeah? So this is a kind of core one-line summary of the Buddha's perspective on love. Just as a mother loves her child, her only child, so may I have the same unbounded love for everything that moves. So at this point, clearly, it's not exclusive to human beings. He's expressing an aspiration of a love which extends to all that lives. So that's a tall order, isn't it? I don't know, so I've been doing this for 24 years. I definitely do not have an unbounded heart for everything that moves, I'm afraid to say. No, I'm having a go. I think I'm not bad at being friendly and interested in human beings, but it's tough. It's hard. So does that answer the why for you? Does that image, does that evocation, does that move you? Do you, as I said those words, it's an image, isn't it? It's not an argument. It's an evocation or something. Does that kind of speak to you somehow? Does it feel like there's some truth in that for you? Of course, this isn't exclusive to Buddhism. Like all of the great religions of the world, all of the great philosophical traditions, they all speak of love. They will use slightly different language. They will evoke it in slightly different ways. But everybody is interested in love. If those of you who were here earlier this evening, you would have seen, Daniel's put together a delightful playlist of love songs, and it will come as no surprise to you. There's a lot to choose from. Yeah, love is. Human beings are really interested in love, aren't we? We're really motivated by it. So we've got our what is love, and then we've heard from the Buddha what his conception of love is. And then we talked about why we would love. Yeah, so we talked about a sense of essence, a sense of choice, a sense of inevitability, which is still an interesting word. I'd be really interested to hear more from you what you mean by that. So, what's the Buddha saying? Why does the Buddha say we love? Why is that important? So, I'm just going to dwell for a few moments on the core of Buddhist philosophy. The core, it's not really philosophy. The core to what the Buddha saw about what it was like to be a human being. So, forgive me if it feels slightly clunky or slightly simplistic. Hard to do. So what the Buddha's saying is the Buddha's just realising, just a quick aside. Both I'm assuming you're familiar with who the Buddha was or what Buddhism is, but just to make it explicit. So the Buddha was a human being who 2,500 years ago in northeast India had a big question, and his question was, what do we do with this life in the light of the fact that we and everyone we know and everyone we love will die? How do we make sense of life given the inevitability of death? And without, it's a nice Thursday evening, you're here to have a nice time, so we're not going to dwell on it for that long, but it's worse than that, isn't it? Because actually there's a whole shed load of pain before you die. And our friend here who referred to dopamine, I'm afraid to say that if we look at the balance of human experience, if our goal in life is the pursuit of pleasure, we're fundamentally going to fail at that. There is no hope to have more pleasure in this life than pain, I would suggest. And obviously, this is one of these questions. If I had my nice PowerPoint thing here, it would have question, is that statement true? That's quite a strong statement. So just to give you a small example of why I feel that statement is true. So many years ago now, I was on an intense meditation retreat. It was really powerful, strong, intense retreat. A lot happened on it. And on the last night, I was in a rush and I fell over. And I was in the Welsh kind of countryside. I fell over and cut my hand. And none of you will be able to see this, but if you imagine, I've put there's a scar on my hand smaller than my little fingernail. Yeah. At this point, I was like 26, 27, and it was like, it went in, so like there was flesh exposed. And I was on this intense meditation retreat, so I was quite aware. And what I sat with was waves of pain. Yeah, just like these waves of pain going through my body. And I remember being a somewhat overdramatic 26-year-old, just sort of thinking about this, thinking, like, the intensity of this pain is tiny, it's like the scar's smaller than my fingernail. Like, I've experienced a whole shed load more pain than that since then in my life. And any of you, faced cancer, lost loved ones, there's a lot of pain to be had in this life. And I remember sitting there thinking, each minute of this is comparable to, say, like the pleasure of one orgasm in my life. And this pain, it went on for hours. Like, maybe some of you, you're all into the polyamory thing and you're having a lot of sex. But, I was sitting there thinking, this is like, if the game of life is to have more pleasure than pain, like, this is years worth of sex, of pain, years worth of sex, years worth of pleasure in sex and pain I'm having here. And it's a tiny cut. It's a tiny cut on my hands. So where am I going with all of that? the point is, well, the suggestion is, the question is something for you to consider. If our conception of the purpose of our lives is to maximise pleasure, I would humbly suggest that that is not going to go well for you in the end, because of the inevitability of the complexity of being alive. Obviously, it's worth saying that Buddhism isn't a downer. Buddhism is about having a good, rich, fulfilling life. But it can't be a scale, so it can't be on the level of pleasure. There's got to be more. Anyway, that's a whole aside, which I wasn't particularly planning on doing. So I need to kind of get myself back to the point. So the point is, the Buddha's saying, what is love? Love is an unconditional positive regard for everything that lives. Why would we want that? Why do we need that? And I was saying that Buddha was this human being who had this big question, how do we lead good lives in the light of pain and death? And he went on a journey to find something, and Buddhism would say that he experienced a freedom, a liberation, a transformation which every other human being can access to. That's the core of Buddhism, is an evocation of a state of liberated, transformed consciousness which every other human being is capable of accessing. That's what Buddhism is fundamentally about, and it's about achieving that, moving towards that. So, what the Buddha was saying was that why aren't we free? What is it that his key insight was? He's gone on this journey to find freedom, and he's found something. And what he found was that I, you, and every living being experiences ourselves as separate and isolated and limited. That's just, it's the nature of our biology, isn't it? I'm here having a body, and this lovely lady with the yellow jumper is there eating a muffin. And we're definitely different. It's pretty obvious, isn't it? It's like, I'm standing here talking, you're eating a muffin, I hope I'm not embarrassing you. That wasn't my intention. We're definitely different. So we experience a sense of separation. And of course, this separation gives rise to an experience of isolation. Yeah, I experienced because then, and sort of, it's overwhelming, isn't it? Because I don't know how many of us are in this room. There's me here talking and looking at you. There's lots of you, there's only one of me. So it's easy to feel isolated, to feel separate, to feel overwhelmed by that. And that drives us into two completely biologically understandable behaviour patterns. So we either say, that looks good, give me some of that muffin, that will make me feel safe and secure and happy and good about my life. Or we say, actually I'm a celiac, so like the muffin's a really good example, don't give me that muffin because it would poison me and I'd spend a week in bed feeling sick and sorry for myself. So we've got this constant movement in life where either make me safe, make me feel good, all of these things we're talking about, which is what we're looking for in love, make me feel, give me a sense of purpose, give me a sense of community, it'll help me to survive, because actually we need other people to help us survive. Or we're kind of driven by fear, anxiety, overwhelm, separation, all of the things. We see our writ large in our world, don't we? We see our whole world is structured by these two movements of like, I want this, I need this, I don't like that, it scares me. That drives everything that moves. And this is why the Buddha's insight into love for me is so important, because he's saying, if you want to answer that question on a deeper, more satisfying level, then we need to recognise these pulls, these drives, our need for love, our need for security is being pulled. It's being, biology, advertising. I was sitting in the city before this evening, just looking around, just looking at people, thinking, well, we're so driven just by wanting to be safe, wanting to be loved. And it's so human, isn't it? Like the way we dress, the way we behave, the way we talk, these buildings we create, they're all driven by a simple desire for safety, for security, for affirmation, to be wanted. It's totally human. It's totally natural. So, what for Buddha, so we've got, what is love? Love is an unconditional positive regard for everything that lives. Why do we need it? Because we need to find an answer to this existential aloneness, this lack of security. And probably you've all felt that in your lives, even in the best moments of your life, the moment you're having a lovely time, you're on holiday with somebody you really love, the sun's shining, It's great, isn't it? It's really, those moments are really lovely. But somewhere in the back of our minds we've got, yeah, but I'm going to have to go to work next week. Or, yeah, but I'm going to get old and I'm going to lose all my hair and then maybe they'll leave me and then I'll be lonely and sad again. Or, oh, I've got to keep this going all the time, you know, love me, love me, love me, love me, love me, love me. It's exhausting. So what's the Buddha saying? What can we do about this? What is a more kind response? Yeah. So just before I go into that, just to pause and say for a second, the Buddha's a pragmatist. So he's just like, look, he's presenting this big vision. He's saying, yeah, but give yourselves a break, guys. You know, you will be motivated by these things. I'm married. I've got a smartphone. I like playing video games. I'm going to go home after this evening. I'm going to play a video game. I'm going to run around in the imaginary world shooting things. And here I am talking about unconditional love for everything that lives. It's complicated. It's complicated to be a human being. That's okay. So in what I'm saying, please don't take it as a criticism of your lifestyle or a criticism of your choices. It's really not. What Buddhism is presenting is an invitation, a sense of what could be possible. So what's the Buddha saying? In a way, he just comes down to something really, really pragmatic. He's saying, we experience ourselves as isolated and separate. And what he's saying is, there's something you can do about that. There's something you can do. So one of the things which often, maybe you all don't think this, but often something that comes across when you start talking about people, about love with people, is that we strongly feel that love is a feeling. I love muffins. I don't love you anymore. So we have this sense of this presentation that love is a feeling, and we can be very, very preoccupied with our feelings. If you look at the wonders of music, music is all about strong feeling, isn't it? I have this. There was some movie in the early 2000s, one of these like over-dramatic kind of multiple relationship running around kind of like rom-com movies. And at a particular point in this movie, I remember there was this, one of the central characters, it was in the pouring rain, and you know that scene in the movie when the guy's screwed up and he's walking, maybe it's a woman, but often it's a guy in this case, it was a guy in this case, he's walking in the rain, in the dark, on his own, coming to terms with the stupidity of the mistake he made and the infidelity or the jealousy or whatever, you know. That. And he looks up to this guy and he says, I love you. It's just so over the top. It's like, yeah, you're saying that, mate. Sort your bloody life out. Go in there, treat her well. That would be much better than, I love you. It's like, who cares? Who cares? So we can be very, very preoccupied with our feelings, can't we? Because that's all we've got. You know, we feel things strongly. But Buddhism and many other traditions, many other ways of looking at the world usefully observe that what is most important in life isn't what we feel, but it's what we do. And for those of you, all of you in this room, you know that already, because because if you weren't aware of that, you wouldn't be able to live life well, you wouldn't be able to have healthy relationships, you wouldn't be able to do anything, because our feelings, they just blow us left and right all the time, don't we? We had this whole, again, a presentation earlier about monogamy. Well, the challenge of monogamy is learning to tolerate the fact that we don't have such intense feelings. I've been married for, how long it was, 2019, so that's 5 years now. And it's definitely, I'm just really clear, and sometimes to be provocative, I say this to people, if you want a more intense life, you want a more exciting life, go and start practicing infidelity. It's really exciting. I've never done it, but it's just obvious, isn't it? Clandestine text messages, secret rendezvous at hotels. It's it's going to be super exciting. But what's the problem? The problem is it stuffs up your life. So, one of my hobbies is, that's weird, one of my hobbies is talking to taxi drivers about their lives when I get in taxi for them, which doesn't happen very often. So I was having this really lovely conversation with a taxi driver once. So it's 20 minutes, we're going to a retreat centre somewhere. And I asked him, it was maybe 10 years ago, so I was probably in my early 30s and he was in his mid-50s. And at some point I said to him, so what do you want from life? I felt like that's quite a brave question to ask, but I felt we'd got that far. And he said, I want to go to Paris, I want to go to Vegas and gamble, and I want to have lots more sex. And I was like, well, that's good for you for knowing what you want. So, but you'll notice Mr. Dopamine, he was pretty high on the dopamine, wasn't he? And then later on in the conversation, I was asking him about his family, and he was like, oh yeah, I'm out of touch with my kids. It's like, so that obviously, you know, we've had for, you know, like obviously when he said, I want to have lots more sex, I laughed, because that's quite a funny thing for somebody you've just met to say. And then we're on to this more sober note. Yeah, this more sober note. So I kind of let that go, because that's quite a heavy thing, isn't it? You know, like, oh, I'm not in contact with my kids. When later on I'm talking, and we got into something else, and then I said to him, so it turned out he was separated from his wife, and I was like, so how come you're separated? And he was like, well, I was there at work one day, and I was bored. So I texted my best mate's wife and said, fancy a flirt? Smash. And I'd only met the guy for 20 minutes, so I didn't point out to him the inconsistencies of his life and say to him, well, you know, you want to go to Vegas, wouldn't it be good to rebuild the relationship with your kids? Like, wouldn't that be a more worthwhile thing to do with your life? It would have seemed like that to me. But anyway, you do you. Where am I going? How am I doing for time? I feel like I've been going for ages. I need to stop, so I wasn't paying attention to you when you waved to me. So just to finish, so what the Buddha is saying is that it is why love, to have a sense of unconditional love and connection with all foods. Why do we do that? Because we experience ourselves as isolated and separate and alone. And how do we do that? By recognizing that actions are more important than feelings, that we can choose to act in an open-hearted way every moment of every day. We've got a choice about how we interact with the world and how we interact with each other. And Buddhism is saying that's really possible. It's always possible. And if you want to talk about more about how to do that, come and join me in the breakout group. Thank you for your time.